Hey guys, let's do some Chapter 4 vocabulary. This is all about eukaryotic cells. Now, eukaryotic cells have a lot more parts than prokaryotic cells. Namely, they have a nucleus. Eukaryotic means they have a true nucleus. So they have a membrane-bound compartment that holds all of their DNA, and that's really one of the main things that differentiates them from prokaryotes. They also have a number of organelles, including the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER, and that is right outside the nucleus. So when RNA is made in the nucleus, it comes out to the ER, it brings instructions on making proteins. There's the rough ER, which is covered in ribosomes, which then make the proteins. There's also the smooth ER, which makes lipids, but the ER is the endoplasmic reticulum. It's where protein production and lipid production take place. After proteins are made in the ER, they are shipped out in vesicles to the Golgi apparatus, or sometimes called the Golgi body. And the Golgi apparatus packages them and ships them off to different parts of the cell where they're supposed to go. So if it's a membrane protein, it will ship it off to the membrane. If it's a cytoskeleton protein, it ships it out to the cytoskeleton. If it needs to go to the mitochondria or the lysosome, so it ships it out to the part of the cell where it needs to go. It's sort of like the post office, I guess, of the cell. The lysosome is an organelle that's full of digestive enzymes. It's sort of the GI tract of the cell, and it digests things like parts of the cell that are old and non-functional. Also, cells do eat. They can do endocytosis, where they basically scoop bits of their surroundings and swallow it, and then lysosomes fuse with it and digest those particles. A vacuole is just a membrane-bound storage container. So there are water vacuoles, there's food vacuoles, there's vacuoles that can store magnetic materials in some bacteria. There's vacuoles that have all sorts of functions, but basically just a storage compartment, a membrane-bound storage compartment. The mitochondria are often referred to as the powerhouse of the cell because that is where all of the ATP is made, or a majority of the ATP is made there in the mitochondria. It's a unique organelle. It has two membranes, not just one, and it's thought to have evolved from basically one prokaryotic cell swallowing another prokaryotic cell. So mitochondria have some unique features, but the most important thing to know about them is that they are, in fact, the powerhouse where ATP comes from. Chloroplasts are only found in some types of bacteria and all types of plants. They are the special organelle that can do photosynthesis. So no pathogens or bacteria that colonize humans have chloroplasts. Still an important organelle to know in its existence. It's kind of similar in a lot of ways to the mitochondria. Hyphae. Now we're talking about fungi. So fungi can have these long, molds, look kind of furry because the cells actually grow in these stringy long lines that are called hyphae. Some fungi, though, just form shiny little colonies, like molds, or if you open a yogurt or something and there's, I don't know if yeast grows in there. Anyway, yeast is another form of fungal cells, so they can either grow as these elongated hyphae or they can grow as these little round cell-looking type things. So a yeast is a round fungal cell and a hyphae is a long fungal cell. Some fungi can do both. They are dimorphic. They can exist both in the yeast form and in the hyphae form. An infection that's caused by a fungus is called a mycosis. So mycosis is just a fancy word for fungal infection. A saprobe has to do with nutritional requirements of an organism. A lot of fungi are saprobes, meaning they feed off dead things. They are decomposers in the food web, but we call that anything that eats dead stuff is called a saprobe. Anything that feeds off of living material is called a parasite. Any pathogen is basically a parasite, so it's feeding off the host's body. Fungi, when they reproduce, they produce spores, which are different than the spores of bacteria. Bacteria can form endospores, which are very tough, resistant, dormant sort of shells that can live in the environment for a long time and withstand harsh conditions. But fungal spores are not tough and dormant. They are just sort of like fungal pollen. They're just the reproductive bits, seeds, if you will. When we get to protozoans, a lot of protozoans can exist in two different phases. They can form a sort of endospore-like stage, which is called the cyst stage, which is sort of dormant and resistant to harsh conditions. And then they can come out of that stage and become a trophozoite, which is the feeding active stage of the protozoan. So for existence, Giardia lamblia, which causes giardiasis, which is, if you drink dirty water, you get really bad diarrhea. The cyst form oftentimes lives in the water, but when it infects humans, it turns into the trophozoite form and causes disease. My favorite type of pathogen, because of course that's what I did my research on in grad school, are helminths, parasitic worms, because they're just really weird and gross, and that makes them cool. So helminth is just a word for parasitic worm. There's different types of worms. There are nematodes, which are round worms. There are trematodes, which are flat worms. And there are cestodes, which are tapeworms. And hopefully we'll have time to talk about each in class. That's all for now. Bye-bye.